Imagine waking up one morning and finding out that someone has quietly bought your bank, your employer, your railroad, your suppliers, and the newspaper that was supposed to expose them. You didn't see it coming. Nobody did. Because the man who did it didn't announce his moves. He didn't brag. He didn't threaten. He just arrived. Soft-spoken, Bible in hand, freshly pressed suit. And by the time you understood what was happening, it was already over. His name was John D. Rockefeller, and at his peak, this one man personally controlled the equivalent of $631 billion in today's money, not through inheritance, not through luck, through a calculated, methodical, ruthless campaign to own not just an industry, but an entire country's economy. At the peak of his financial power in 1913, Rockefeller's net worth was $900 million, equivalent to $631 billion today. He pocketed nearly 2% of America's entire wealth. He was not the richest man of his time. He was the richest private individual in the history of the modern world. And almost everything he did to get there was either illegal, immoral, or both. This is the story nobody tells you in school. The origin: born poor, raised cold. John Davison Rockefeller was born on July 8, 1839, in a small town in upstate New York. His father was a con man, not figuratively, literally. William Avery Rockefeller was a traveling salesman who sold dubious medical elixirs and was rarely home. He moved from town to town, he had a second family, he was a bigamist and a fraud, and young John knew it. His mother, devoutly religious, held the family together through sheer will. The lesson John took from his father wasn't shame, it was something colder, more useful. He watched a man charm people, extract money from them, vanish, and face zero consequences. And somewhere in that childhood, in that house of chaos and quiet survival, John D. Rockefeller decided he would do the same thing, just bigger, cleaner, and God would approve. He started working as an assistant bookkeeper at age 16, where he gained the business skills needed to manage transportation costs and collect debts. He was meticulous, obsessive. He tracked every penny in a personal ledger he called Ledger A, a habit he kept for the rest of his life. He knew the price of everything. He trusted no one, and he waited. In 1859, oil was struck in Titusville, Pennsylvania. It triggered a gold rush. Thousands of men flooded in. Fortunes were made overnight and lost just as fast. The market was pure chaos, overproduction, price crashes, fraud everywhere. Most people saw chaos and ran from it. Rockefeller saw chaos and saw opportunity. In 1863, Rockefeller steered into the oil business, buying into a new refinery designed to operate more efficiently than its rivals. He wasn't interested in drilling for oil. That was too unpredictable, too dependent on luck. He wanted the refining, the processing, the part that every oil producer needed regardless of price. If you controlled the bottleneck, you controlled the market. And Rockefeller understood something that almost no one else in business history had grasped at that scale. Control the infrastructure. Let everyone else do the work. On January 10, 1870, Rockefeller co-founded Standard Oil of Ohio. He was 30 years old, and the machine was just warming up. The Cleveland Massacre. What happened in February and March of 1872 became known in history as the Cleveland Massacre, and that name was not chosen lightly. Here's how it worked. Rockefeller made a secret deal with the three major railroads, the Pennsylvania, the Erie, and the New York Central. According to the pact, the railroads would raise their rates for everyone, but pay secret rebates back to Rockefeller and Standard Oil, securing their steady, high-volume business. While the going rail rate was listed publicly as $2.40 per barrel, Standard Oil paid only $1.65. The competitors didn't know this. They couldn't understand why they kept losing on price no matter how efficient they became. Because the game was rigged, and they were the last to find out. On February 26, 1872, the new shipping rates were posted in the oil towns of Pennsylvania. Rates doubled for everyone, except Standard Oil. The result was riots in the muddy oil towns. 3,000 people entered the Titusville Opera House and shouted slogans against Standard Oil. Standard Oil signs were defaced with skulls and crossbones. Death threats flooded Rockefeller's office. He didn't flinch. In less than 4 months in 1872, Standard Oil absorbed 22 of its 26 Cleveland competitors. Rockefeller's approach was surgical. He would arrive, quiet, polite, soft-voiced, and offer a simple choice. He told them, "Take Standard Oil stock, and your family will never know want." Most who accepted did indeed become rich. Those who refused were systematically destroyed. One of his former competitors' partners died by suicide. Another had to mortgage his family home to pay debts Standard Oil had engineered. By the end of 1879, Standard Oil controlled 90% of all oil refining in the United States. Not 51%, not 60%, 90%. In less than a decade. The empire. Standard Oil wasn't just a company, it was a government. In 1882, Rockefeller's lawyers created an entirely new legal structure, the Standard Oil Trust, a corporation of corporations. 9 trustees, including Rockefeller, ran 41 companies simultaneously. This was financial engineering so advanced that most legislators didn't even understand what they were looking at. Standard Oil had gained an aura of invincibility, always prevailing against competitors, critics, and political enemies. It had become the richest, biggest, most feared business in the world, seemingly immune to the boom and bust of the business cycle, consistently making profits year after year. It grew vertically, buying up railroads to transport oil at cheaper costs, producing its own barrels, and converting oil-based waste into new products like paint and chewing gum. Nothing was wasted, nothing was left to chance, and no one was allowed to compete. In 1902, fully retired at age 62, Rockefeller earned over $58 million in a single year from investments alone, equivalent to $1.7 billion today. He wasn't even going to work anymore. The machine ran itself. The woman who broke him. He had survived riots, congressional investigations, boycotts, presidential enemies, but he had never faced Ida Tarbell. At age 14, Ida Tarbell had watched the Cleveland Massacre happen to her own family. Her father had refused to sell to Standard Oil and was slowly crushed. She never forgot it. 30 years later, she came back. Tarbell spent years examining hundreds of thousands of documents, uncovering strong-arm tactics, espionage, and collusion inside Standard Oil. She got an insider, one of Rockefeller's own senior partners, to talk. He handed her internal documents, thinking she was writing a flattering piece. When he finally realized what she had uncovered, his face went white with rage. In 1904, Tarbell published The History of the Standard Oil Company, a devastating investigation that documented the company's espionage, price wars, heavy-handed tactics, and courtroom evasions. The American public erupted. And finally, after decades of immunity, the government moved. In 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court ordered the Standard Oil Trust to be broken up. Rockefeller appeared to have lost. But here's the twist, and this is the part that will blow your mind. The greatest trick, losing to win. When the Supreme Court broke up Standard Oil in 1911, they shattered it into 34 separate companies. The public celebrated. Justice had been served. The monster was dead. Except, Rockefeller owned shares in every single one of those 34 companies. The resulting companies, including what later became ExxonMobil, Chevron, and BP, actually made his fortune explode after the breakup. The market valued each company independently. The sum of the parts was worth more than the whole. Within 2 years of the breakup, Rockefeller was richer than he had ever been. On September 29, 1916, newspapers across the country declared him America's first billionaire when his Standard Oil successor shares soared past the historic 10-figure mark. He never went to prison. He never paid a meaningful penalty. He gave away over $500 million to charity, founded the University of Chicago, bankrolled modern medicine, and died peacefully at age 97. The man who the government tried to destroy ended up richer, more powerful, and more celebrated because of their attempt to stop him. The lessons. So, what do we actually take from this? Because this isn't just history. This is a masterclass in power, money, and how the world actually works. Lesson 1. Control the infrastructure, not the product. Rockefeller didn't chase oil. He controlled
the roads oil had to travel on. In any industry, the person who owns the bottleneck owns the market. Ask yourself right now, where is the bottleneck in your world? Lesson 2. Chaos is opportunity in disguise. Every competitor saw the oil boom as dangerous chaos. Rockefeller saw it as a clearing. The markets that terrify everyone else are often the ones with the greatest upside for people willing to think clearly. Lesson 3. The breakup made him richer. When Standard Oil was broken up, the successor companies turned Rockefeller's concentrated risk into a diversified fortune that compounded beyond anything the original trust could have achieved. Forced diversification became the ultimate wealth multiplier. Lesson 4. Reputation is a tool, not a constraint. Rockefeller understood that giving away money strategically changed the narrative. He didn't become a philanthropist because he grew a conscience. He became a philanthropist because it was the smartest reputation management strategy in history. He didn't just build the greatest fortune in history, he engineered it. Every step, every move, every relationship. Cold, methodical, and patient. Love him or hate him, there has never been anyone quite like John D. Rockefeller. And there probably never will be again. If this story opened your mind to how wealth actually gets built, not the motivational poster version, but the real version, subscribe, because we cover the stories they don't teach you in school every single week. Drop in the comments which of Rockefeller's tactics shocked you most. I'll see you in the next one.